the Poles after this war, they will have to think a lot about how to provide security for themselves in this part of Europe for years to come. Even if peace returns, it will always be in people's memory that Russian aggression didn't disappear in 1989. We for some reason we thought that, oh yes, that war against Georgia in 2008 and that annexation of Crimea, they were small incidents. It doesn't mean that war has returned to the European continent for the first time on a large scale after the Second World War, but that thinking is definitely out the window now. And apart from for Poland modernizing its army and building it up, it will have to wage a policy that is based on making sure that their Western allies also realize that times have changed and that they start taking more and more responsibility for building up their own militaries and to cooperate with NATO.
Too long people have relied on America,
yes,
the United States, and of course you also have to be willing to defend yourself. And of course for Poland, the immediate problem with the Russian invasion of Ukraine is merely a reflection of Poland's struggle for security against its eastern and, for a while, western neighbours, going back, well, as we've discussed on this programme, going back centuries.
Absolutely. It's unfortunately a feature of our geography as well, both the physical geography in the meaning that we lack defensible borders on our western and eastern ends of the country. Naturally, the south is quite well protected with the mountain ranges we have there, but we are located on the North European plain that is very flat. There aren't really any wide rivers either along the borders, so it's quite easy to try to barge through. The second problem with physical geography, political geography, is that traditionally we've had these two. Well, the Germans, maybe they weren't united up until 1871, but nevertheless they did have some form of not maybe modern nationhood, but united through language and culture in various ways. We had them in the west and the Russians in the east. So the Poles, they know their history, they have seen this before, and they never really believed in this end of history that was a popular theory of international politics in the early 1990s, that liberal democracy had won with the end of the Cold War, and now every country, including China, would over time become a liberal democracy, and that there would be world peace because of it. So the Poles, they have to think about how to rearm their own army. They have to think about how to get their Western allies to realize that the world has changed. But this is where Ukraine comes into play, is that the Poles, they need to think about their relationships with their close neighbors, with countries that have suffered through similar tragedies in history, and that simply know the Russian psyche maybe a little bit better than some countries in Western Europe. Here I have countries such as Finland, the Baltic states,
yes,
Czechia, Slovakia, Ukraine naturally in mind. And Belarus will also play a very important role. So the Poles, they will have to win some hearts and minds,
yes,
among the Belarusian people, and in the coming years, hopefully see a situation in which Lukashenko disappears, democracy will start flourishing in Belarus, and that the Russians will be, hopefully due to the war in Ukraine, in such a weak position, just as they were in 1917 and 1918, which ended with the Brest-Litovsk agreement, when they decided to trade space for time, so to say, and they withdrew from Ukraine and Belarus, and which they did again when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. So this is the best solution for Poland. Another political crisis in Ukraine, in Russia, caused by overextension, either due to war, as in the First World War, or just trying to keep up in the arms race with Reagan during the 1980s, and the economical, political, and cultural collapse that took place in the Soviet Union at the turn of the 1980s and 1990s. If Russia would have to withdraw from Belarus, and there would be this window of opportunity to also embrace Belarus into the EU and NATO, preferably, then Poland could feel that finally its security is secured for now. So
Indeed.
Ukraine and Belarus, they are the key.
I think we're facing not the end of history, but alas, the end of this programme.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Adam. That's been fantastic.
Thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. There we have it. As I said, not the end of history, thank goodness, but the end of this programme. But fear not, we'll be back on another occasion with Poland Daily History. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have, and thank you for watching.